Hey, welcome back. This week was another interesting one across all three markets. Gold, Bitcoin, and Euro USD all gave us important price action worth understanding. And next week is a big one. NFP week, non-farm payrolls, dropping Friday, June 5th. That alone can shake all three markets significantly. I'm going to break down this week's recap and exactly what to watch next week. Both scenarios on all three markets. Let's get into it. So this is a 4-hour good chart. Okay, starting with gold, and this week was actually really interesting from a structure perspective. Between so last week's low around 4,466 to 4,488. Yeah, this low. You can see 4,466 to 4,448. So that was last week low. Remember last week I said watch this support structure. I said these structures, these areas here are key. They are key zones. And that under the weekly demand zone could trap BS and cause a reversal. Well, look what happened. You could see what happened at this area here. So there is the weekly demand zone here. You could see that there is a bounce here, and it caused a reversal. So boost came in and rendered this zone. The boost came in while this sell was happening, and they defended this zone. Price tested the key medium term uptrend support. So you could see that price tested this uptrend support, and then around 4,540, and then as of this Saturday you could see, so price tested this previous support back around this 4,530, and then we could see this as of this Saturday. Now here is the bigger picture. Okay, before going into the context of gold, I want to highlight something here. So once again, this was last week low, and then bears sold off. Yeah, they sold, and then breaking multiple support. They broke the support, they are breaking support structure lower and lower and lower. But at this demand zone, weekly demand zone here, we could see that bulls came in, buyers came in, and then they went back up, testing these previous highs. Now resistance. You can see we had a test here. So here is bigger so here's the bigger picture context that matters for gold right now. The Fed, and at the fundamental side, the Fed has completely ruled out any rate cuts in 2026. Markets are now actually pricing a possible rate hike before year end. That keeps the dollar supported, which puts pressure on gold from the fundamental side. But geopolitics, Iran's situation, Strait of Hormuz, continues to support safe haven demand for gold. So you have two forces pulling against each other. Which is why gold has been ranging and choppy lately. So generally, gold is is still below the 50-day moving average, which tells us short-term pressure is still to the downside technically. So two scenarios for gold next week. If price can push back above this 4,000, this area here, this 4,580 here, and close above it, that changes the picture significantly. It opens the door back toward 4,650. You could see here it could open it could open the picture back to this area and the highs, but I want to see a clean close above that level, not just an intraday spike. Bearish scenario: if price fails to hold current support and breaks below 4,466 zone, sellers remain in control and we could see further downside. 4,423 4,423 yeah, 4,423 becomes the next target and potentially lower from there. And one big thing to note for next week: NFP drops Friday, June 5th. Strong jobs data means stronger dollar, which pressures gold lower. Weak jobs data means weaker dollar, which could boost gold higher. So size down into Friday and wait for the reaction before making any decisions. Gold next week summary: bullish if breaks and closes above 4,580, targeting 4,650 and higher. Bearish if fails to hold and breaks below 4,466, more downside ahead. NFP Friday is the white card. Be careful with sizing. So let's go into Bitcoin. BTC USD. Okay, so this is Bitcoin. This is Bitcoin 4-hour charts. Okay, this is Bitcoin, and this week showed us something very important. This week showed us something very, very important. $73K was the critical level. So 73K area was tested last week. Yeah, I mentioned that. Last week I said 73K was the critical level. If it breaks, sellers stay in control. And seller stays in control. And that's exactly what the market tested this week. You could see that there was a test of this low again this week. Price has been grinding around this area. Not a clean breakdown below 73K, but also not a convincing recovery. Currently sitting around 74 to 76K range. As of this Saturday. Now, here's what the data is telling us behind the scenes. The fear and greed index is sitting at 30, deep in fear territory. So that's where deep in fear territory. That's actually interesting because extreme fear can sometimes signal a potential turning point. But, and this is important, long-term Bitcoin holders have been quietly reducing their positions this week. The strongest hands have been trimming ahead of June. That's not a bullish signal. Yeah. So that's not a bullish signal. This zone right here, 77,500 to 78,000. You can see this zone here from 77,500 to 78,000 is now a critical resistance. This was support for weeks before it broke, and now you can see that it's a support zone before it broke this level here, and now it's sitting above price, acting as resistance. For Bitcoin to show any bullish recovery, price needs a daily close above 78,000. So price needs a close above 78,000, not an intraday spike. A proper section close above that level. Yeah. So 2 scenarios for Bitcoin next week. If price pushes up and closes above 78,000 convincingly, that tells us buyers absorbed the supply sitting in that zone. And we could see a move toward 80,000. We could see a move toward 80,000 area and beyond. So bearish scenario, price fails to reclaim 77.5. If price fails to reclaim 77.5, this zone here. So if price fails to reclaim 77.5 to 78,000, comes back down and breaks below 73k, clearly that opens up 70,000 as the next significant support and potentially lower from there. NFP Friday also affects Bitcoin now more than ever. Crypto reacts to macro events these days. Weak dollar from weak jobs data could give Bitcoin a boost. Strong dollar from strong NFP keeps pressure on Bitcoin next week. So next week's summary, bullish only if daily close above 78,000 to targeting 80,000 plus. Bearish if fails at resistance and 73k breaks 70,000 is going to be the next target. NFP Friday adds volatility. Don't size up into it. Yeah, so NFP Friday adds more volatility. Don't size up into it. So let's go for to EURUSD and then EURUSD. So EURUSD is the last one. This is the last one. EURUSD. Okay, last one EURUSD. And this week had an interesting development. Price found support. You can see here, price found support around 1.1590 area this week. That level held and gave us a bounce. We could see a bounce here. And price recovered somewhat during the week, but is now testing resistance around. So price is now testing resistance around the 1.1660 area and strongly to break above it. Here is the bigger picture on EURUSD right now. The weekly and monthly structure is still in a downward correction. I mentioned that last week. Okay, I mentioned that last week. So let me show you. So the weekly and monthly structure is still in a downward. You could see we could see that lower highs. So this is indicating a bearish structure, a bearish market, a bearish EURUSD. This signals a bearish. So this moves here, this bullish, but there was now a new established bullish trend in the bearish trend. So this means that we have this is a short time bull trend. So, but the bigger picture on EURUSD right now is still that the weekly and monthly structure is still in a downward correction, even though the longer term trend from 2025 into 2026 was bullish. So you could see that from 2025 to 2026 was bullish, and so we are in a recovery phase right now. So EURUSD is in a recovery phase. In a correction phase rather, sorry. What's this? So just like I mentioned, EURUSD is in a correction phase right now. Yeah, and we could see that this resistance has been holding this area here in the 4-hour chart. So all those support levels that broke over the last 2 weeks, 1.17, 12.13, 1.16, 74, and all these support zones that broke from here that broke to this place. They are now acting as resistance. We could see that this level is now acting as resistance over here. We could see that this level that was broke is now acting as resistance. Current price action. So price has to fight through all of them to resume the uptrend. So price needs to fight through all of this previous support now turn resistance before resuming the uptrend. Now the macro backdrop matters here too. The Fed ruling out rate cuts and potentially hiking that keeps dollar supported, which puts Euro USD under pressure. But any positive developments on the Iran situation or US-Iran deal could weaken the dollar quickly and boost Euro USD. Geopolitics is a real wild card this week. Yeah, so geopolitics is a very weak. The key support area is 1.1590. Yeah, this is the key support area. So 1.1590 is the key support area this week, but needs to hold again next week. Yeah, so this support needs to hold again next week. If 1590 breaks clearly, next support zone is 1.15. So if this zone breaks clearly, next support zones are here. That's where analysts are watching for. That is where analysts are watching for the next potential demand reaction. So two scenarios for Euro USD next week. Bullish scenario if price holds above this level and manages to break and close above 1.1660, this level here. That could trigger a pushback toward 1.7020 and higher. But previous high must break for the full bullish trend to resume. That is a key. That's a key. Now, bearish scenario. If 1.1590 fails to hold, price breaks below and pushes down to the next support zone 1.1525 to 1.14 1.14 area. Bearish pressure continues as long as price stay below broken support levels. So you need to note about NFP. NFP Friday is massive for Euro USD. Strong NFP dollar strengthens. Euro USD drops. Weak NFP dollar weakens, Euro USD recovers. This could be the catalyst that determines next week's direction. Euro USD next week summary. Bullish if 1519 area holds and 1.1660 breaks, targeting 1.7020 and higher and higher. So bearish if 1590 fails, targeting 1.1525 to 1.1492. NFP Friday is a key event. Watch closely. Okay, wrapping up. Gold bulls defended 44.66 to 44.23 support this week. Next week, watching 45.80 for bullish break or 44.66 for bearish continuation. NFP Friday is the big white card. Bitcoin grinding around 73 to 76k this week. 77,500 to 78,000 is a critical resistance zone. Close above 78,000 changes the picture. Break below 73k means more downside towards 70k. Euro USD found support at 1.1590 this week. Watching 1.1660 resistance and 1.1590 support next week. NFP Friday could determine the direction for the rest of the week. The big theme for next week is NFP on Friday, June 5th. June 5th. It affects all three markets simultaneously. Reduce size going into it and react to what the data confirms. Don't predict NFP direction. Just be ready for both scenarios. If this breakdown helped you prepare for next week, hit subscribe so you get this every single week. Daily updates and setups on my Telegram. Link in description. In collaboration with PA Trading Discord, a great community, link below. And if you want to work with me directly or explore account management, DM me on Telegram or my other socials. See you next week.